All right. First of all, I want you to be wowed by my amazing art. What we are talking about here are just some foundational things about evolution. We'll talk a little bit about Darwin and some terms. So I can discuss the role of Darwin in the theory of evolution. Darwin was the one who put all the pieces together and actually formulated the theory of evolution as we know it today. Did he have help? Yes, he had other people who gave him pieces of the puzzle, but he's the one that kind of put it all together. And so he's known as the father of evolution for that reason. I can describe the influence of data from other fields of science on Darwin. So paleontology was a new field at that point in time. So Darwin was reading papers and things like that about that. That's, of course, the study of fossils. And so they were learning a lot about creatures that no longer existed from those fossils. Geology, Hutton and Lyell talked about how these slow, gradual processes were what made the earth form into what it was. And in order for those to have done all the work that they did with the mountains and the valleys and the rivers and the canyons and all that, then the earth had to be a lot older than it was because those gradual processes occurred over time. And so that gave Darwin two pieces of the puzzle. One, the earth had been around longer than he thought. And two, if that happened to non living things, it could also happen to living things. Demography is the study of populations. Thomas Malthus talked about overpopulation and how that creates a struggle for existence. And so Darwin thought, that might be a piece of the puzzle too. And then biology. So other biologists, but also his observations as a biologist, as he was on the Beagle and going around the world and collecting specimens and studying them. He learned a lot about living creatures and how some of them that are closely related look very similar and some don't, and those kinds of things. And so he took all of those pieces of the puzzle, those foundations, and you could kind of say he built, his own, and then there's his theory. Okay, so those foundational pieces gave him the foundation, the ideas, the support to put this theory together. All right, I can define what it means for an individual and or population to be evolutionarily fit. All right. This is a snowy area, okay? And I've got some creatures that are living here, okay? Who can you see? The green or the white? The green. So if these are, let's say, beetles. Well, beetles don't live in the snow, but let's just say they do. And I'm a bird flying over. What beetles am I going to eat? I'm going to eat the green ones. Why? Because those are the ones I can see. So I'm going to swoop down and get those green beetles until there are no more. And so these white ones would be evolutionarily fit because they are blending into their environment and therefore they're not being seen. And so they're not being eaten. They're able to survive and they're able to reproduce. Now, what about if this environment changes? Oh, now who's the fit ones, right? Now the green ones are fit and the white ones are the ones that are going to get eaten. Okay, so evolutionarily fit is dependent on the environment. Okay. I can define the term descent with modification. Descent with modification is where descendants have modified or are different than their ancestors. So all of our mammals in the ocean, whales, dolphins, sea lions, walruses, all those things, they originated on land. All mammals originated on land, and then they moved back into the water. Over time, millions of years, the descendants of these ancestors have modifications, have differences and changes that have allowed them to survive in the water. They're hydrodynamic. They have the dorsal fin, the tail, the flippers, but they have accumulated those mutations over time that have allowed them to be more successful in that environment. And the last thing is I can compare and contrast artificial and natural selection. Artificial selection is going to give you, I don't know where it's at. I don't know which one of these it's in. Things like these pigeons. Okay. Why is it not clicking? There we go. Okay. It's where humans are choosing the parents. I want to breed these two horses because there's a super fast mama and a super strong daddy. And so it's going to give me a strong, fast baby. And I can win the Kentucky Derby or whatever. Or we mate dogs to get a Labradoodle. I want these qualities of a lab and these qualities of a poodle. And if I put those together, I can get a Labradoodle who has both qualities. That's artificial selection. Natural selection is where nature chooses who gets to survive and therefore reproduce. Because if you're dead, you can't make babies. So when going back to my green and white dots, the green ones can survive in the green environment and the white ones in the white environment. And those are the ones that are going to survive to reproduce. And so that is natural selection. And I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions.